Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the ToLiss Airbus A321, and today we're going to look at flying a raw data ILS approach. So that's an ILS approach where we don't use the flight directors or the autopilot and we just fly it ourselves, much as you do when you start out flying in training, and it's something we practice in the real aircraft. It's certainly something we'll do in the simulators a lot as well, and it could be something you have to do in a degraded situation where some of the systems on the airplane aren't working properly, that sort of thing. So it's a useful skill to keep up. Definitely. I am a real world Airbus pilot, so hopefully this brings some more context to your home simulations. It's not for any real world use or associated with any real airline, of course. It's just for our home use on X-Plane. So let's get started. So here we are in the hold at Bovingdon. We're going to be doing this approach into Heathrow runway 9 left, as we have in some of our other videos. Quite simple. We're in the hold to the north here, then we're going to be vectored round and intercept the ILS into Heathrow. The wind, it's a light easterly wind. On approach, I'm expecting the wind to be from the north, as you can see here, which will come up later. Otherwise, minima of 280, 3-degree ILS. I'm landing with low auto brake, a flap full landing. I've set this up all in the FMGC. If you need help with that, I have a video for it in my playlist, my tutorials, which I will provide a link to. Ooh, let's get that right, EGLL09 left. And what we're going to do is look at how the Airbus can make our life easier for flying a raw data ILS. So the way to fly these in the Airbus, often without flight directors in a conventional airplane, and I'll do this now. I'm going to take out the autopilot, turn off the flight directors, and this is what you'll be looking at on the PFD. So I've still got the auto thrust in, so we've got speed mode, and we'll leave that there for today. But what you can also see is I've got my pitch on the artificial horizon, and that's about it. The pitch and roll obviously displayed. Then we would scan, so we've got our pitch, then we'd scan to the vertical speed, and our heading, and our speed, and so on. But in the Airbus, I'm going to go to track FPA, and you'll see it brings up the FPV, the flight path vector, which is excellent, because I'm going to use that now, and we called it the bird in the Airbus, because it looks like a little bird, I guess. And I'm going to use that to control the airplane. So let's say I wanted to start a descent. So let's put that down to 5,000 feet. And I'll put in the QNH, which I believe is 1012. Yep. So if the wings are on the horizon, that's 0 degrees. So they represent now my angle through the air. If I want to descend at 5 degrees, I would put the wings, the little wings sticking out the circular fuselage, I'd put those on the 5-degree bar here. So I'll do that now. And all I do is lower the nose. 5 degrees would be quite an extreme nose down here. Oh, there we go. And we get that to sit there. So although my pitch is only at -1, my angle through the air is less. It's about 5 degrees down. And that gives us our vertical speed. And then I can scan with the vertical speed as a backup. So if I want to fly a 3-degree ILS, which today's ILS is, into 9 left at Heathrow, which we can see here, all I have to do is put this little bird, once I'm on the glide slope, on 3 degrees. So where's that? Well, it's not marked. We've got 0, -2.5, and -5. But if I put the bottom of the fuselage on the 5-degree marker, that will be about 3 degrees for the wings. So you can see they're sitting just under the 2.5. So we are back now, heading towards our ILS. And with the ground speed, typically, if I was flying 200 knots and I wanted to descend at 3 degrees, I would need a vertical speed of around half of that. So 200 is going to be 1,000 feet per minute. 300 would be 1,500 feet per minute. If I'm doing 100 knots, obviously, it would need to be 500 feet per minute. And that's done on the ground speed when you're on the ILS, because the ILS is referenced to our ground-based station. It's a radio transmission from the ground. So I'll talk about that a bit later as we get onto the ILS. Okay, so let's downgrade now. So I'll show you how we would do that now. I call it downgrading. We're just removing some of the automatics. First of all, autopilot off. Off it comes. We get the warning. Great. Then I'd ask for the flight directors off, because we're not going to use them. And then I'd ask for the bird on. And that's quite a common little flow for Airbus pilots. Flight directors off, bird on. You can, if it's your preference, depending on the airline, you could just fly around, not like that, without the bird. You could fly around like this. It's perfectly possible. That's how we would learn to fly. But the Airbus has the bird available to us, so it's nice to use. Something else to be aware of, we have flight directors while we're in track and FPA like this, but it's not designed for human consumption, as it were. It's not really followable, and I'll show you why. If I was to change the track with the flight directors, and you'll see it move over, and then I could, let's say, wind up the altitude and go for an open climb, and you see it go, it's very hard to follow that. So you're much better with flight directors off. You'll also see it's gone to thrust climb, open climb, and it's accelerating because it's thinking I'm climbing because I asked it to. So that's why when we're not following the flight directors, you must turn them off because then it goes into speed mode and will follow this blue bug. You want to be very careful with that. Okay, so let's put the track back where it was on 260. And as I said, that would be a heading from air traffic control. So we'll get ourselves to 4,000 feet, heading 260. And we'll start positioning ourselves around. So let's say I want to level up at 4,000 feet. Oh, excuse me. Oh, come on. 4,000 feet. There we go. So as we get closer, I'm keeping the scan, watching your vertical speed. Now 4,000, gently raise the nose, and I'm putting the wings of the bird back on the horizon, and that's flight path angle of 0, which is level flight. The Airbus should now auto trim and so on, so as the thrust comes in and all that sort of stuff, there's not much we need to do. It accounts for it. It's really nice. Excellent. And then we're going to be vectored for our ILS, so I'll just set that up now. So here we are, downwind. I've drawn my extended center line out so that I've got an idea. And I'm going to descend to 3,000 feet, expecting that would be with what air traffic control would vector us, which would also be our platform. And 3,000 feet on a 3-degree glide slope would mean intercepting the glide slope around about 9 miles. So I can start down, gently lower the nose, and let's get the speed into managed speed, because that's going to be one less thing we have to think about, managed speed there. So how are we going to fly this ILS? Do we have to fly it stabilized? And when I say stabilized, I mean fully configured before we start down the glide slope. Well, no, we can configure down the glide slope, but what that means is as we put out flaps and the airplane will naturally balloon, it will do its best to maintain the profile, but it may do a little bit of a balloon. Then we will have to sort that out ourselves, so we need to be ready to regain the glide slope. But it's totally possible, it just increases your workload slightly. So what I'll do today is I'm going to intercept the glide slope about flap 2 and then configure the rest as we go down. The advantage of configuring as you go down the glide slope is that you don't have to maintain straight and level flight as you put out the flaps, which is not too difficult in the Airbus, but it can be higher workload than some other ways of doing it. We're pretty low on the profile, so I can reduce that rate of descent. So all I have to do is, as long as the bird doesn't go on the horizon, we're still descending gently. And I'm going to put out flap 1. There we go. Auto thrust is in speed mode, so approach phase I've already activated down here. That's going to come back to the green S speed. I'm going to make it nice and easy, so we'll get ourselves out past this line and then intercept from there. As I said before, for intercept headings, our inbound track on this ILS is about 090, so we're going to intercept about no more than 30 degrees off of that. So that's going to be a heading of 120 degrees. We're going to have a tailwind as well. So if you have a tailwind, you've got to be ready because it could push you through faster. So you'll need to intercept it slightly more carefully. So I may go for an intercept heading of maybe 110 today. Okay, approaching our 3,000 feet level off. You have to be aware of these intercept headings with the wind. It can make quite a big difference because typically we'll intercept when we see this diamond start to move. And in the Real Airbus, it would show as a half diamond, so you'd know it's off the scale, which I don't think it does in the ToLiss at the moment. Okay, 3,000 feet. So we'll come around onto heading 180 degrees. This is where in real life having another pilot makes it much simpler. Heading 180, I've set it as a track, but as we said before, if I put the little dot on it, then I'm flying a heading. And we'll get ourselves closer. We're too far out. About 1.5 miles from that center line, I'm going to turn onto my intercept heading. You can do it anywhere from 2 miles. If you're further out, you could do it a bit further. But this would be typical sort of radar vectoring. With a tailwind, you'd do it further. So if there was a strong headwind, I could do it at 1 mile. With a strong tailwind, I want to do it sort of 2 miles. So in fact, I might go for 2 miles today because we're going to be blown towards that localizer. This decelerate message shouldn't really be there. I'm not sure why. It seems to have got stuck on the glitch. And you can see there, it's very easy to forget to fly that heading. Something as well, the track bar in the Real Airbus is taller than that, certainly the ones I've flown. So you can see it above the bird more clearly. That one's a little bit hidden. So although we have the bird, it's not our primary reference. There we go, 2 miles. I'm going to turn now onto my intercept heading. No more than 25 degrees of bank without the flight directors typically. And I said 110. So if I put 110 there, keep it level. It does take a little bit of work. The Airbus isn't perfect. It does its best. And we can see the localizer already moving on the bottom there actually. So once that happens, you can ask the other pilot for the inbound track. So I would ask for 090, but I'm going to actually focus on getting myself onto that track for now. Keep it at 3,000 feet. And now start reducing that bank. And if I go to wings level now, set the inbound track of 090. And there we go. I can see that my tail is slightly to the right of the blue track marker. So I'm going to gradually drift towards the localizer, which is exactly what I want. If I was to put it right on the localizer now, if I do that, so it's perfectly in the center, then what will happen is I'll just parallel the ILS, and you can see it on the navigation display. It's just sitting along next to it, and we won't actually intercept it. So I need to put the bird to the right, which I'll do now. And at this distance, not too much. So no more, we're about 11 miles, so I wouldn't do, if I had a big correction to make, I wouldn't put more than the wingtip. So I'll show you, I'll put the wingtip on the track. That should be enough, really, depending on how far out you are. You don't need to do more than that. As we get closer, I wouldn't do more than the fuselage. So the corrections need to get smaller because it gets more sensitive as you get closer. Here comes a glide slope. So I'm going to about flap 2. And without touching the side stick, you'll see the airplane should roughly correct, but a bit of a balloon. And from half a dot, I'm going to start down for 3 degrees. So let's get that bird back on the track, because you can see we've reached the localizer. And let's get that nose down, a bit aggressive there, onto the 3 degrees. And as I said earlier, that means sitting the bottom of the fuselage roughly on the 5 degree marker. And we're doing 170 knots over the ground, so that's going to be somewhere between 800, 700 feet per minute. And there we go. And now you'll see I pretty much don't have to do anything. I'm not touching the side stick. As I see the localizer go slightly to the right, and I'm tracking slightly to the left. Okay, I need to bring it ever so slightly to the right. I can see the fuselage getting a little bit too low on that 5 degree marker. So I know the wings are probably below 3 degrees, so let's correct that. And I can back that up. My vertical speed was too high at 1,000. Let's put out the gear, the rest of the flap. That's on, excellent. And that's it. We keep our reference. So 600 feet per minute I know is not going to be enough. So I need to be aware that I'll have to correct that later. Let's get that bird slightly more towards the localizer. Flap 3, flap full. And you'll see if I don't touch the side stick, so I'm not touching the side stick as I put out flap full, it's not too bad as long as the speed's back. So it's totally possible to do this whilst descending on the glide slope. Need to get that localizer back in, so we'll put the bird to the right. I can see I'm descending too fast, 1,000 feet per minute is too fast. Bird was too low. There we go. And now you see I'm just using the side of the fuselage to correct, and that's going to be more than enough at 5 miles. But you have to remember to put it back. So once I've got back onto the localizer, I must then return to the datum, which is going to be our 090 track. So also you can see it on this screen, our track is ever so slightly right of the airport, but I wouldn't use that. We're primarily using the PFD. Slowly getting towards it. And there we go. If the crosswind is stronger, so it's from the left, so I'm flying my heading slightly left of the track, then you would just, it's still the same. The bird would be, so the track could be here and the bird would be beneath it. That would be fine. That's just how you do it. Okay, keeping it on 3 degrees. Keep it coming towards the localizer. In reality, this bird is not always perfect. The way the IRSs align and the difference between magnetic variation and so on, it means that you can't actually use it perfectly. You've got to keep the localizer in your scan, because it could be that the tracking isn't just working quite as perfectly as it could. As we're going to see here, 090, but what we're getting is probably somewhere between 090 and 091 is perfect. So you're having to correct anyway. But this is going to be a really good datum and reference for you. So now you can see how sensitive it is. Even moving just within the fuselage width is causing us to see changes. There goes the glide slope away from us. Then as we get closer towards minima, start looking out for your visual references. And we'll just carry on with our normal landing technique. I've got a video on normal landings which could help you, a tutorial, so I'll provide a link to that. And remember, we could still be in cloud now, so it's very sensitive. You've got to be very small corrections this close in, because our minima we're still not there. It's all the way down at 280. So we could go visual about now. So yeah, got to get it right. Gently transition visually. Don't do any major changes. You've been flying the profile. It's worked for you this far. 50 feet over the threshold, roughly. And then into the flare. So there you go. That's a raw data ILS. It's something that takes a little bit of practice. It's a nice thing to do in the Airbus, and using the bird really is a great addition to flying it. Hopefully you found that useful, and we'll have plenty more tutorials to come for you soon. Thank you all for watching, and also thank you for those who joined on the live stream. I'll be planning to do more of that sort of thing in the future, certainly if I can get the VATSIM to work a bit better than it did the other day. So, as always, thanks for watching, and see you again in another video soon.